Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Marco. How about you?
Oh, improvising.
Is it time for me to go? I can take over. Do you want me to
Can
do
you
that?
take over? Please do.
Absolutely. All right. Hi everyone. Let me share my screen. Cool. Hopefully everyone can see that. So shifting is an agile coach. So the genesis of this was Mark Summers and I. Mark is a coach in from the UK. I think he lives in Germany, and we collaborated on creating a comparative agility associated with my Badass Agile Coaching book. We created a Agile Coaching growth wheel assessment with comparative agility. It's free, and you can look on there and find it. And Mark and I collaborate, outside of that, and they were asking us they comparative agility were asking us to do something for an event they were having, an event to give back to the some groups in Europe, and we were excited about that. And Mark and I were noodling on, a lot of times we noodle on the future. What does the future look like? And we get asked that question a lot out in conferences and etc. Some people think I'm somewhat of a thought leader. I don't think of myself that way. But we were noodling on the future, and these shifts came out of that discussion. The Mark and I, these shifts. So I'm not saying they're all. They're there may be more, there may be less. Maybe you'll agree, disagree. That would be wonderful. It was just some things that came out of Mark and my observations, our experience, our direct experience, and what we're seeing out in the market. We're fairly well connected. So let's get on with it. So shifting is an agile coach, and I've been doing this for a little while. So that's about not too long, but maybe too long, but I've been doing it for a little while. So I have some certifications, etc. So this is what I was talking about. And we were looking at the world of agile coaching. There's a lot of disruption. So we were also reacting not just to look at the future, but there's a lot of shifting going on I think from our point of view, there's a lot of disruption going on. We think there's some major pivoting going on. And so we were talking about this from the point of view of Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, enterprise coaches, release train engineers, Agile change agents, anyone in that sort of that universe. Um, and we view these as shift not from a good or bad. So it really isn't, and that's not. I don't mind a good debate, but we weren't shifting from this is bad to good. It's just different in thinking, approach, and mindset. So here's the shifts, and I'm just going to go through them. And I'll pause at the end of each one and see if someone has a clarifying question or not, and we can explore these. And what I'd like all of you to do is sort of think about your own role, like take some notes about what's shifting for you. And I want you to self-reflect. Do you need to do some shifting, if that makes sense? And specifically, what would be your shift strategy? Because I think many of us are getting disrupted, and we can't be stuck in the past. We have to be sort of adjusting and pivoting to the future, uh, and doing some fine tuning. So one is roles, I think, are moving to skills. So there's a shift from role definition, meaning role like Scrum Master role, product owner role, Agile Coach role, job description. I think of when I say role, also think of job description or title. I'm not saying they're going away, but I think we have to start focusing less on what we're called and more on skills development, like agile coaching skills development. Uh, and what differentiates us is not our name on our business card or our name in the org chart. Again, I'm not saying they're going away, but what I'm saying is the differentiation is what you bring to the table from a skills point of view. if that makes sense to everyone. I think there was a study done from there's a Agile Institute in Australia, homed in Australia, and they and the Scrum Alliance, the Business Agility Institute and the Scrum Alliance did a survey maybe a year ago, plus or minus. And so this isn't coming out of thin air. They were saying the same thing, that we need to get less stuck on our jobs and roles, and we need to really expand our skill set. So that's one shift that we need to be making. And talking about it when we're being recruited, talking about skills. So less I'm a Scrum Master, and more what skills I bring to the table. I sometimes talk to some Scrum Masters who are looking for work, and they ask me a question like, can I take a project manager position? So I'm a Scrum Master, and I found an open job that says that says project manager in it, and their faces scrunch up and they look down their nose at it. It's like, that it's a project manager position. And I'm like, you're getting stuck on the role. I said, if you need the money and you need the job and you have the skills, I mean, for me, I would interview for the job, and I would bring every skill I had to that. I would be as disruptive as not intentionally disruptive, but I would bring my agile self to that with my skill set and see what happened. So that's a part of that as well. Is I do think people have gotten stuck in the roles mentally to some degree. The next shift is frameworks to patterns. And when I say frameworks in this case, I'm talking about Scrum. And I don't want to debate, is it a framework or is it a model or is it a this or a that? I'm not going there. All right. So to me, framework is like a container. so so going from previous stuff, what are some examples of framework in my terminology? Safe, scaling frameworks, Scrum, Kanban, uh, any of those things, moving from, as a coach, did you read the Scrum Guide? I still, to this day, hear Scrum Masters and coaches chastise people and tell them to read page X of the Scrum Guide. And it literally breaks my freaking heart when I hear that. And it not from their point of view, but imagine what their client is feeling. Imagine how that lands with the person you're coaching, whether it's a team or whether it's a leader or an individual or a manager. So we need to start moving from, I'm not dissolving Scrum, I'm not dissolving Kanban, I'm not dissolving Safe, I'm not fighting that battle. But what I'm saying is we need to start understanding the underlying patterns that work in those frameworks and beyond. Patterns. For example, I'm not fond of Safe at all. If anyone's ever read my work, I'm pretty not fond of Safe. But one thing in Safe I'm fond of is PI planning. Used to be called release level planning, before Safe took it over. And to me, collaborative planning has some goodness in it, done efficiently, effectively. And in some contexts, it really works well. So that little pattern, to me, pull that out, and maybe now as an agilist, as a coach, as a Scrum Master, we start helping clients plug patterns together. And you see that Jürgen Appello is doing this. There's another gentleman in Europe, I forget his name, who does something called flight levels. There's research and there's evolution that patterns are emerging, and that clients are smart enough that, shoving a framework down their throat isn't working as effectively. And maybe we help them develop patterns that work for them. So moving from a framework centricity to patterns and putting them in your toolbox. It's not just, I think there's a little bit of a laziness where we can say, here, we're going to do Scrum. We're going to do entirely Scrum. And here's the Scrum guide. Let's implement it. That's almost an easy installation, because you're installing the entire thing. Whereas in patterns, we have to actually have experience. We have to be experiential. We have to be able to work and partner with the client to figure out how we cobble these things together for them, how we run experiments to figure out what works in their context. So it's much more collaborative. It's much more co-creative. It's much more experimental, right? And I think that's where things are going, is towards that pattern. And we need as you should be starting to decompose some of it, looking at Scrum as a set of patterns, but also looking for some other patterns out there um, in the universe, and books and things like that, and putting the organizational patterns, for example, teaming patterns, for example, to put together and put in your toolbox so that you have those things. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions, either on role skills and frameworks patterns. And remember, it's not good, bad. It's this, I think things are leaning in this direction. And it's going to be disruptive to us. And so let's not be stuck to the left. Let's start evolving to the right. Professional coaching, if there's no questions, to agile coaching. So they're not the same thing. And to me, I think of professional coaching as being a subset of agile coaching. The reference for me is the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. So if you want to know what Agile Coaching is, it may not, if you think you're an Agile coach and you think you're fully skilled, and you may want to look at the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel and do a self-assessment, and not in a negative way, but to say, where am I? Am I well-rounded? Am I nimble? Do I have all of these skills? And so professional coaching exists. I'm not saying you can't be a professional coach, but in agile context, we need to start looking at the depth and breadth of agile coaching. And if we want to operate in that space, we need to then start expanding our competencies in that space. And that includes domain experience. That includes like understanding product domain and technology domains, et cetera, and building experience in that area. So evolving in that way. Again, not anti-professional coaching, but I don't think the future of agile coaching is if someone who says, I'm only going to do professional coaching 100% of the time, I think you're going to find yourself ineffective in future contexts. That's the point. If that's the only tool you have, what's that? If the only thing I have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You're gonna have to change that mindset. I see that Tom Carlson has his hand up. Tom, what do you got?
Back to when you opened the questions, I couldn't find the raise hand button. Sorry. You mentioned teaming patterns. That's not a term I've heard, and I'm just curious. What are a few popular, trendy teaming patterns you're seeing?
So I'm old and my brain doesn't work, Tom, as well as it should to some degree. But someone help me. There's a wonderful book on teams, like product teams, and then what's the book?
Is it Team Topologies?
Teams. Oh, thank you. Who was it? Jerry. Thank you. Bless your heart, Jerry. Thank you for throwing me a line. So team topologies is something, Tom, when I'm talking about patterns, I would look at team topologies and being familiar with that. And that would be a good starting point. Someone else has something. If anyone has anything additive, add it to chat too.
Oh, sorry, Bob. There's another one called the 5 dysfunctions of a team. That's really good.
I would buy. So it's really cool that we have those two. So to me, 5 dysfunctions is maybe cultural dynamics, and it could be patterns, and there's some wisdom in there. And then the topologies is really, to me, technical teams, and how do you cobble them together depending on their work. So those would be 2 wonderful examples of that. Marcelo, what do you got?
I was trying to keep my mouth shut this entire time, but you queued this up, so I'm just going to go off mute and say it. The book is called The Advantage. It's also written by Patrick Lencioni, and it talks about a leadership team pattern. And actually, it's actually a pretty doggone good book. At this point, it's 13 years old, and I'm surprised it doesn't get as much mileage as it deserves.
It's a wonderful. I use it in my leadership class, Marcelo. I reference that. It's sort of evolutionary to me from the 5 dysfunctions in Lencioni's work. And to Marcelo's point, 5 dysfunctions, a lot of people interpret it at a team level, at a low level. You think of it as a Scrum team level. But Lencioni, it wasn't directed there, but that was a lot of the application space for it when people were looking at that work. And the Advantage takes a much broader organizational view. Depending on your coaching, right? These are things that you now have to start learning. These are shifts that you have to start making if you're unaware of these things. All right? Team focus. This is something I'm really passionate about. I see so many Scrum Masters and so many coaches, and it's because what the job description says, coach the team, or the contract that you've signed says coach the team, or the stakeholder says the team is broken. These teams suck. Go fix them, or whatever. That the purview of the focus of coaches, RTs, etc., is always teamwork. Everything is broken at a team level, and I'm going to coach the teams. And I want to shift, and I think I heard someone say this in the answers to that shift. Shift from team or downward focus to systemic focus or system focus. Because I would argue that most of the issues and challenges are not the team. I felt this way for 20 years or more. Everyone is like teams, they're broken. There's all this huff around the teams and pointing at the teams and going there. And when the dust settles, I look at it, maybe like 10 or 20% of the challenges are maybe team, and 80% of them, I use Pareto in my mind. I think of Pareto, and it's like 80% of the stuff is outside the purview of the team. And if you're only looking at the team, you're not really going to be helping solve world hunger organizationally, if you will. So in all seriousness, start changing your lens. I think I wrote a blog post a little while back I was taking an extreme case of Scrum Masters, stop coaching the team. Stop it. And coach the system. Right? It's easy. Actually, coaching the teams is easy. It's an easy target. You want a challenge? Go coach the leadership team. I'm not telling you not to play with the team. I'm telling you that you need to start looking systemically and now start developing. Back to Marcelo's point, you may have some development to do in your skill set because you may not have the skill set to coach at that systemic level. So then build your skill set there. Agile as the goal. I talk to I coach people. I say the goal is we're going to install Agile, the word. I sometimes wish we could erase the vocabulary that we've created around Agile, and that's actually what this is about. There are a lot of coaches that they're trying to, like, for example, Scrum Masters are talking about their leaders and saying, well, we could be Agile if only they were Agile, right? So they're sort of demonizing the leaders or stereotyping the leaders, or they're pointing the finger up and, well, they're not Agile. You know what? That's not the goal. The goal is not to convert everyone to be a prototype, a clone of you and your mindset. The goal is to get shit done. The goal is to deliver value organizationally. The goal is to experiment, to learn. There's different goals there. So value and impact as the goal. Like, and I'm going to say something. Anyone who's really into Scrum, just stick your fingers in your ears. But Scrum is not the goal. I don't care if a team is only using half of the Scrum guide, but they're getting shit or an organization, and they're like, sort of leaping tall buildings, and they're working things out. I'm not going to ding them because they're not following Scrum. They're getting the results. Now Scrum may get them there, but in some organizations not. So that's not, how well you do Scrum, how well you do Kanban, how well you do SAFe. We miss the point. It's not about the terminology. It's about, and it's also, there's a human balance factor. Like we got stuff done and we haven't burned out people. In fact, the human beings are happy. Imagine a world where we're achieving these wonderful goals and we haven't burned the people out as a result of achieving them. So that's part of that value and impact focus. I'll pause there to see if there's any reactions. The other part of it is I've only got three shifts left. And so I'll see if there's any Michael, I see Michael's hand up.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with all the other shifts, to be honest. It's when you get to the value and impact that becomes a little bit hazy, because that becomes as a very subjective thing. Where the other ones you can absolutely see the transition, easy transition from those bits. So if you have any more thoughts around value and impact, I'd really like to hear them, Bob.
I mean, I would say in our role, we have these soft, squishy roles. So one reaction, good question, Michael, by the way. We have these soft and squishy change management sort of goals, and we're, as coaches, we're not really in the game with the teams. And I would say, shift that mindset. We need to start getting on the field to play with the team somehow. We need to start getting in the game. And I would argue that if you're in the game, Michael, like what would be a measurement of your delivering value? A VP comes up to you and high fives you and says, I don't care what you're called. You helped us get shit done. You helped us deliver on these outcomes. And this is the ROI it generated. So now and they actually know what your name is, Michael, and they don't know they may not know your title, but they know the impact you had to the business. And then they start pulling you in and talking to you about strategy. So you start becoming almost an advisor to leaders. You with me? They're starting to partner with you a little bit. So now you've earned value and your impact by interactions. So there's ROI and there's spreadsheet value and there's things like that. I usually measure my value by are folks paying attention to what I'm doing? Are they pulling me into strategy sessions? Are they asking me my opinion, et cetera? And I'm like, I've gotten into the field of play. I've moved from the stands as a coach. Oh, I can't get in. I can only ask questions. Oh my gosh, I can only ask questions. I'm not allowed to get in the game or provide advice or maybe provide a design pattern that I've seen work in this case. Can't mention that. I've started to get in the game. Now, there's a balancing act. Everyone to be struck, right? There's a balancing act that needs to be struck. But what I would say is find your opportunity. The other part of getting in the game is it depends on your technical or it depends on your professional background. So for example, if you have a BA background, maybe get in the game from a product point of view. If you have a technical background, maybe get in the game from an architectural point of view. If you have a project management background, find ways for you to get in the game and bring some of your deep experience into what you're doing. I once was talking to there was a Scrum Master, they were talking about jobs. I coach some people on, finding work sometimes. And they were like, I have 12 years of project management experience, but I've never mentioned it in an interview because I'm really looking for a Scrum Master. So they conversationally, they negated 12 years of deep, rich experience from Agile contexts. And they, do you think I should? And I'm like, no, you shouldn't do that. You should bring every essence of what you have to the table and bring it into play, right? Now, if you were in a dairy farm, if you were a farmer and you were milking cows, maybe not bring that deep experience into play. Maybe that's inappropriate. But if there's appropriate or relevant experience, and I do think people out there are erasing or not mentioning some of their leadership experience. Oh, I've led, but you know what? It's not about it's self-directed team, so I can't bring my leadership experience into play. Hogwash, bring you into play. So I just rambled there. That's that value and impact is the goal. What impact are you having? Michael, you gave me a soapbox and I took it and I apologize.
I appreciate that. I love that, getting on the pitch.
Exactly. And you know what? A lot of us are off the pitch, right? Get your butt onto the pitch. Figure out what part you can play. That's the point. All right, change to people, right? So another one of these shifts, and this what Mark was here, and Mark, this was Mark's, and I buy into it. He's like, we've had this thing of we're trying to change people, and very often as change agents, I hate to tell you this, folks, but a lot of us sell change, but we hate change ourselves, right? I want you all just take a little piece of paper. No one's going to see it. It's a secret. And I want you to be honest with yourself for once in your life, and look at this piece of paper and say, how change friendly am I personally? Right? Me. Like, do I like to be changed? And just on a scale of 1 to 10, and be honest, you don't ever have to, I don't even want to know what the numbers are. Okay? And if you're lower on that scale, then we have some work to do. Because not only do we have to change, we're changing with people. We're part of the change. When I think of change, I think of going shoulder to shoulder, not getting into a room and doing a presentation or something like that, but I think in terms of where I'm walking down the change curve with you. So I often, when I think of change, I think of the Virginia Satir's change curve. And I think in terms of walking the change curve with people, that we're going through this change together. So we're changing with people. And part of that is empathy, building the empathy to that, if that makes sense to everyone, building that empathy with them. So we can only change at the rate that the system will change. Part of this is related to that system focus. So moving from an individual focus to we're changing systems and being systemically aware. For example, the trauma of a system. Like, this is the 18th change initiative that this organization has gone through. Does that factor into how we walk the change curve? Of course it does. Of course it does. We need to slow down. In my case, I need to grab a cane or something and really slow down as I'm navigating that with people. Another thing is episodic change related to that is episodic change, like these big GUMAS PowerPoint presentations. We're going to do a transformation to really focusing in on continuous change. And when I say continuous change, I mean incremental but small bites, it really aligns with that walking the change curve. Is at what rate can we walk? And let's just walk it continuously. As part of continuous change, though, I want to add something, is sometimes we need to take a break. Sometimes organizations have change fatigue. And we force, it's not that the change is bad, it's a good set of changes, we need to make it, but we don't have the energy for it. So I think as a coach, as a change agent, and we are that, we need to recognize and help sort of regulate the change. And sometimes that says stop. We need to stop and smell the coffee. Maybe we need to reap the benefits from so if you all look at Virginia Satir's curve, there's an endpoint of it. There's a new status quo where we're getting better results, if you remember that. And part of that new status quo is, why don't we stay at the status quo and revel in it for a little while? Why don't I mean maybe a week and say, why don't we just revel in the positive impact and let it sit before we start changing again? But really continuous change. The final shift is I have arrived. This is a pet peeve of mine. And now the people that you're attending this, which means you're continuously curious and continuously learning. But I meet so many coaches where they've arrived. I am a certified team coach with the Scrum Alliance. I have arrived. In the org chart, I am an enterprise coach level 3. I have arrived. I'm a trainer. I'm a PST or a CST. I have arrived. Now it's time for me to generate revenue. Now I stop. So I have this arrival view. Thank goodness, I've never looked at it that way. I've looked at it as like, I never stop growing. And what drives me is the curiosity. Maybe part of it, now I'm reflecting, part of it is maybe my professional, I'm pretty energetic. I'm pretty passionate about what I do. So I'm an Energizer bunny when it comes to, I found something that I love doing. So I love what I do. So that gives me energy. And I'm pretty damned curious. And I'm a reflection artist. I can't help myself but reflect towards improvement. And those patterns have helped me just keep growing and keep growing. I mean, I have a to-do list and I wrote a coaching book, and I've coached for a long time, and I have a list of coaching things that I'm intrigued with, books and ideas and approaches. For example, constellations. I want to dive deeply into constellating systems and constellating coaching. And there's an entire book around that, and there's some practice around that. And it's going to probably take me a year and a half to master some of the ideas and practice some of those ideas. So moving from arrival syndrome to never stop growing. And I want you, again, it's one of those things, maybe after this session, I want everyone to look at this. And if you have some additional shifts, that's fine. And look in the mirror. No BS. This is not in the market. This is not the time for artificial BS or blowing smoke at yourself or making you feel good. This is a time for you to look honestly in the mirror and say, where am I? And where is the market shifting? And what are my gaps? And how do I need to start filling them to be excellent, to be badass? And what does that look like? And put together a strategy based on where you are for growth. And I think that's a net of what Mark and I were thinking about with these shifts, is taking shift control of yourself. And I don't know if any of you ever probably shifted. I'm mature enough that I remember manual shifts in cars and things like that. And I want you to upshift. So there's downshifting. Everyone with me? I think a lot of us downshifted. And I actually want us to start up. This is upshifting. If you want a metaphor, we need to, it's a much more challenging environment, and we need to bring it to the future. And you need to bring your whole self, but your growing self. So with that, that's my shift. It's really thank you. And I want you to aspire to be more. We need to be more. Right? There was a 10 years ago. Some people call it, there was a golden age in Agile coaching and Scrum Mastery, where there were lots of jobs and lots of money to be made, et cetera, and customers didn't know what they didn't know, and it was easy. We are no longer in that age. We are in the age where we're in the age of AI. AI is disrupting us, but I don't think it's eliminating the human. I talk a lot about AI and HI. There's artificial intelligence and there's human intelligence. This session today is about amplifying your human intelligence, and then collaborating with AI. If you keep sort of doing these shifts, I don't think AI will disrupt you the ways many people envision. It'll disrupt the easy bits, but we're talking about developing your human capabilities. Think about patterns, for goodness sakes, like how deep and broad that patterns area is and how rich that is. So with that, everyone, I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's any, and I want to check the time, and we have a little time for discussion.
Yeah, it looks like we have about 15 minutes. Wow. The chat was scrolling so fast, lots of engagement here today. It's so awesome. I think everybody probably has written down a Bob Galen quote from this from this meetup today. So just for fun in the chat, and we can share these afterwards. What's your favorite Bob quote from today's meetup?
I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to know that.
I think it's a good thing. No, it's a good thing. At any rate, so we started off with a question at the very beginning. And Tiago, you're welcome if you're still here to come off mute and elaborate on this. But the question is, why do we have to explain our value, and what do we need to do to make sure that value is visible?
I mean, I've done a value. So what I would say is, for Scrum Masters of the Universe, I've done a two-part value. You can go back and look at the recordings.
Mhm.
So one thing is, go back and look at those recordings, because there's 2 hours of content that I think surrounds that. So, but I don't know if I talked about the why is people don't know. So if I asked you, what is the value, if I asked Susan, what's the value of a developer? Or I've been a leader, I've been a VP, and I've looked at a developer, I'm like, if I spend money, I had a client once on the West Coast, and they were trying to plan their next year. Who do we buy next year? How many of these things do they buy? And the no-brainer for them was, we need more. If we have more roadmap stuff, what do we need? We need more developers. And then they were like, but do we really need project managers? And so I don't know. And then, do we need testers? They were really stuck on not getting testers. And I was looking at they had this different value depending on disciplines, etc. And the point I'm trying to make is, I think coaches, Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, RTEs, we're on this indeterminate value. People, they like us, they've hired us, Agile is good. But when push comes to shove, what do these people produce? What do they produce that we sell? If I cut them, what happens to my business? What's on the raw aspect of my business? What does it do? I don't know. I've been in these shoes. There's other people in these shoes. Like Jennifer Fields is a leader. I'm going to pick on Jen in this organization. And Jen is a wonderful leader, but then there are these practical sort of accounting things we have to do. We have to look at the organization. We have to make investments. So are you all buying that? The organization may not know what do you need to do? You need to fill in that blank. Like it starts with the pitch. If you're on the pitch and you're showing people, they're not questioning your value. They make Scrum Master, that's a weird name. I don't know what that is. But damn it. And not all Scrum Masters. I don't know what Scrum Masters do, but Pavel, for God's sakes, Pavel is on the pitch. I saw him work with a team a month ago, and that team raised their performance. It was and they were happy. We have no happy teams. Pavel has some secret sauce that delivers business value. So I may have trouble with some of these roles, but Pavel is special, and Susan is doing something. Susan Breelove is doing something special. So it's bringing that value, so showing the value. And I'm not talking about Agile. Please don't say, oh, we had 18,000 facilitated retrospectives. That's not what I'm talking about. Or we followed the Scrum guide or the Kanban guide to the letter. That has no value, right? It can be wonderful, but it's the business value, the business outcomes. And that's our job to advocate for. Every one of you needs to advocate for yourself and show the organizational leaders your value proposition. And it's not how much Agile crap you've done. It's how much business delivery stuff you've done using Agile crap. using your Agile mindset. But that's not valuable to them. I apologize for using the crap word, everyone. I know I offended some people. I could feel it.
Oh my. Well, I think you probably already covered this in your talk, but if you have anything else to add, there was a question, like what would be the reason behind the shift? Like, where is this all coming from and why now?
I think we should have been doing this on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, yes, there are external factors. I think we've done, me included, we've all done a bit. We got lazy in the golden age. We got complacent in the golden age. We didn't walk our talk as much as we should in this golden age. We should have been doing a lot of things I'm talking about, like systemic coaching. And in fact, I've been not team coaching, but systemic coaching for 20 years. So I've got that. And it's effective. It's been incredibly effective. That's sort of how I look at coaching opportunities. So we all should have been doing that, I think, to some degree. I just think it's catching up with us now because of economic conditions, etc. So it's not this abrupt thing. It's sort of a call, a call to change for us. It's a reckoning for us. But I hope you don't look at that's in 3 years. I've this downturn. 10 years from now we'll get another golden age, and things will be positive and stuff. Hopefully you learn and you learn not to be complacent again. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? Hopefully this is this is an adjustment to your mindset where it's not just reacting to this time. Remember I was talking about chops and being a well-rounded coach? That's not something you achieve and stop. You need to relentlessly pursue that, continuously pursue that. You're never done. And I'm not joking about that because the landscape is changing. So we sort of blew it. Now, I think what's happened is it's blown up in our face a little bit due to a variety of conditions. And the question for all of you, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Is this a call to change? Are you going to walk your talk? Are you going to recharge yourself and recommit to Agile coaching and Scrum mastery or whatever, right? Our skills, are you going to be making this shift? And if you're not, you may want to reconsider what you're doing because the times are changing. They've changed. They've already changed.
Change with.
Indeed. So another question that came up is, no one would question if a product owner needs to make success transparent for the product to market. So why is it that we don't make transparent how much organizations improve?
I think that's part of getting in the pitch. And so nothing's stopping us as making organizations improve. I think the story, what of the extension story is, what part did you play in that? Those two talks, please, if anyone who's struggling with value, go back and look at those two videos. But what I found is a lot of Agile coaches were shy. So we've been fed the servant leadership. It's all about the team Kool-Aid, and it's not about us. And so everyone is reluctant to talk about, very many of us are reluctant to talk about the part we played. Not they, me, the part I played in organizational success. That's an incredibly difficult conversation to have with data, with storytelling, for many coaches, and you need to be advocating for yourself. So it's not just I made it transparent. They weren't paying attention. Well, then you need to tell them the stories, right? Or it's my boss's job. Well, my gosh, there's a hierarchy, Bob. It's my boss's job to advocate for me. Well, of course it is, but it's also your job to advocate for yourself, right? Every one of you should be. I'm going to say something that's going to make you feel a little greasy, a little slippery. You all need to be selling yourself. You need to be advocating for you. Now, not excessively. I didn't just give everyone a license to talk about yourself all the time, right? So for goodness sakes, have some balanced humility, but you need to be advocating for yourself. You need to be talking to your stakeholders, finding out, and it's not Agile, it's what's valuable to them. Right? What are their goals? What are their objectives? It's not Agile. What are they trying to achieve, and then partner with them on that. Charlene, you have your hand up.
Hey, Bob. Yeah. Let me lower that. Yeah. One of the things that I did a really interesting experiment with all the different teams I've had at the company I've been working at for almost 5 years now. And I sent out a survey trying to get feedback from team members, product owners, stakeholders, just on my, how do they feel about my working as their Scrum Master. And I did it very generic, like outstanding, excellent, awful,
Yep.
me, whatever. And I got some really interesting results. It was very positive, and I used that to go to my manager and my CIO with to show value. So the story is starting out as a team member way back years ago, and then moving into a Scrum Master role, and then having that experience and applying it with building trust with my team members, product owners, the whole gamut, all the way through releases.
Absolutely.
And it helped me build credibility. And then when doing that survey, then I had something tangible to go to my leadership with that helped me not only stay in my role, but be able to show that I can provide value and help others.
Yes, and let me flip it too.
Okay.
You said 2 roles, a COO and maybe a
I
VP.
report to a VP and a CIO.
Okay, so those 2, so that's nice. You have all that data. What is valuable to them? So I'm giving you a yes and. It's not just this cumulative
Mhm.
data. What can I do? I would sit down with them. You don't have to respond, Charlene, but I would sit down with them and say, CIO, what are your goals and what can I do to partner with you to deliver on your goals and objectives?
Yeah, my
Right?
standard question is, what is the number one issue that you're facing? You see, I'm in a position to solve.
Right.
That is my number one question.
So the surveys are nice, but
Yeah.
it's also look leaders in the eye and
Mhm.
ask them, what keeps you up at night, whatever the phrasing is, and what can I do, and make sure it's discernible and do something. Don't just talk about it. Do something about it. Work with them. It's going to be tough, so it's probably an incremental solution. Uh, but look them in the eye and then sync up with them. I'm here for you. I am part of how do we deliver. And if they want to do, I'm going to say this is the way I'm going to end this session, everyone. And if they suggest something that's non-agile or a little squirrely on agile, it's just related to the business. Are you going to sort of squirrel up your nose and say, oh, that's not agile. I don't think I can do that. I'm not talking about ethics. Oh, that's no, I can't. Or are you going to join them in the PMO and take a waterfall approach to deliver some results and help and assist them? And
Yeah.
I would say I would do that. We talk about meet them where they are, not where we want them to be. Damn it, we need to start meeting people where they are. That doesn't mean I want to do Gantt charts. It doesn't mean I want to do what, but it starts with meeting them where they are with their solutions and helping them deliver that and show them lessons instead. Oh, it's too much whip, right? I need to meet people where they are and then make a difference along the way. And with that, I think I'm probably close to being out of time. Y'all, this was I love this group. I love the volunteers for this group. So it's an honor and a privilege to be here. I hope you took something away, and I hope I didn't insult anyone. Sometimes I get too excited. So my hope is you had value.
We absolutely love having you, Bob, and thanks again. I think this is probably like the 5th or 6th time, maybe even, and we always love it when Bob comes, and so appreciative, so very appreciative. This was a great conversation, and thanks to all of you who came today. Thanks for your wonderful engagement in the chat and the questions and the and an amazing crowd. I feel like we could go on for another hour and like soak in so much more, but there was so much said. I'm gonna have to watch the video afterwards even to soak it up myself. So we will post that video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel in a few days or maybe early next week. So just be watching for that to come, and I bid you all a great day today, a great evening, depending on where you're joining from in this world, and we'll see you next time at Scrum Masters of the Universe. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
See
everyone.
you, Bob.
Be
Thank
safe
you.
out there. Take good
Thank
care.
you. You too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.